Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is September 6th, 2021, and I'm speaking with Brett Harper, correct?
Yep, that's
Brett
me.
Harper. Okay.
Yep, Brett Harper. Yeah.
So, Brett, go ahead. Oh, before I start, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share them with your friends. It really helps the podcast out a big deal. All right. I just came back from a little hiatus here. I was really, really busy. I didn't have a chance to do my other acoustic workshop channel at all either. So I'm still working with that. So basically, what we're doing, we're limiting everything to an hour. So
Okay.
whoever is coming on, just give me a text, 920-777-1697. It'll all be in the description below. And let me know it's going to be either Mondays or Wednesdays, and it's going to be for an hour. So when you do tell your story, make sure you're concise and to the point. Okay? So, Brett, we're going to go ahead and get started. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Yeah, I'm Brett Harper. I went to Agape from 1999 to 2003. Before I was at Agape boarding school, I was actually at a boys' home in Prineville, Oregon for a few months, about 6 months before I was pulled out of there. And that was actually incredibly abusive too, in different ways. And then my dad runs transports here in Oregon. So he's a part of the problem now as far as he's a transport agent, running a transport business, helping Agape and other businesses find these kids and then transport them to the schools. Now, we did effectively pass legislation. Senator Gelser helped me with this last year. We worked on some legislation to keep kids from being exported from Oregon out to places like Missouri, or shelter states, as we call them, right? And so we did pass that. We passed a law that makes it so that you have to have a mental health professional sign off. You can't restrain them in certain ways, like handcuffs and things like that. So basically it makes it impossible for these transport companies to operate the way that they do. And so hopefully that'll shut down my dad's transport company. We did a lot of work in making sure that we closed all the loopholes. So like my dad will do things like he'll hire people out of state, right, in a different state to transport some kid from, say, like Texas to like Missouri, right? Well, if we ban it here for Oregon kids, then we should be banning it elsewhere. We shouldn't allow him to work in proxy outside the state in a way we wouldn't allow him to work inside, right?
Okay.
And so that's, we passed a law basically stating that he's not able to operate that way as well. And then we cracked down on ed consultants, which is something I don't see anybody else doing yet. And we're really pushing for everybody this year in legislation to do this, because I think that this will choke out or starve the industry, essentially, if we can crack down on transports and ed consultants. So everybody knows ed consultants. If you don't know, ed consultants are, they pretend to know so much about troubled youth and where to place them, but really they don't have a degree in anything. Usually they're just hired by these programs, often paid by these programs to go push them or their type of therapy.
Right.
And so that's, and they often given a blank check. So oftentimes they're giving us a lump sum of money and they never look back because there's no incentive for them to keep checking back. And so we need to do something about that. In Oregon, there was legislation that we had before that for nursing homes, so that people couldn't do like referrals, like could make money off of referring old people to nursing homes because people were bankrolling old people into nursing homes. And so, I mean, that's essentially kind of like what we have with the troubled teen industry, unfortunately.
Right.
If you tell people, look, there's a benefit, off of your kid's tuition if you go find me 2 or 3 other dysfunctional kids, suddenly we have a problem. And so if we can pass legislation in states where we can stop that, or we can make them have to have some kind of rules, which I'm now on a rules committee. I guess it's being formulated. I got an email. And so I feel out of my league, right? This is all stuff that's I've never really been in politics. I don't understand this stuff. But I'm trying to be a liaison as much as I can be for survivors and make a difference. And it's really having a big impact. I really hope that we do it. They budgeted about $1 million to oversee the ed consultants. So they mean business.
Yeah.
And they want to rein in their power, essentially. And it'll be really interesting to see what kind of rules get set. And some people are frustrated because they're like, well, this is legitimizing the industry. Look, the industry is already operating. I'm trying to disrupt or dismantle what I can. I can't take it all down overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, go ahead. That's what I think, some of the work that I've been doing here in Oregon. Of course, in Missouri, we passed a law that now where they have to do background checks, and they have to, they have to adhere to safety and standards. I will talk to you on that, though. That law is really hollow, and we need to go back and redo some things. But yeah, there's some teeth there, and then there's some not so teeth. But yeah, and then of course Agape getting charged will hopefully be charged here soon. We're waiting to hear the official word right from Gaither on that. So there's a lot of work going on. Yeah.
Well, some of those, I've heard some of the people that I've interviewed have said that people from Agape have come and got them. They didn't get a transport service. They just had, like Julio and some of these other guys would get in their trucks and go to another state and pick them up and bring them back.
So I was there in 99-03. I got transported by a transport company. I wish I knew the name of the transport company. But when I got to Agape, I guess I gave my dad ideas. Bill Harper is his name. And so he started transporting kids to Agape while I was there, which made me super popular, if you can imagine. Your dad brought me here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So after I got out, he tried to recruit me, and I said no. And I almost went into the military, but yeah, he had a deal with them for a while. And then Julio came back, and I don't know the whole thing, but basically, one of the guys that worked as their dean for a while runs a ed consultant business now.
Oh, okay.
And so now and so when he moved out, Julio and them moved in, and so it's kind of like a power vacuum that keeps getting filled with different people. You know what I mean? You saw Brian's back, you know what I mean? And things like that. And so
that guy's never going to change. He's always going to be the same abusive idiot. So
Afghanistan, but a school, it's
Agape stand, yeah.
Agape stand,
So Brett, tell us about your time there.
So when I got there in '99, they were building the swimming pool would just be getting finished, and like some of the building that they had was just getting finished at the time. It's hard to kind of like, they're always building things on the backs of these kids, right? So it's hard to explain exactly, like, encapsulate where we were, but we had a Kwanzaa hut. We didn't have the gym that they have today, I guess, and the Kwanzaa hut out there, and then we were with a big field where they do all of their fireworks and stuff. Now we cleared that while I was there, and then and made that whole area. And then a lot of the houses that were built, we built while I was there. And then of course the tornado happened when I was there. And so we had to rebuild everything that we were building. And so like, I mean, it was pretty hard. Like, you know, I gotta be honest, like, you know, like, you'd be working on school and stuff, and sometimes get selected for work crews, and you go out and you do this work that you knew like kids really shouldn't be doing, especially without training. I have had 2 spine surgeries. So I have sciatica. I've had sciatica for about 18 years now. So my back broke directly after I got out of Agape. It was hurting me while I was there, and I told them about it, and they stuck me on kitchen duty a lot, which really didn't help. It really, I mean, like, you were still lifting things, you're still bending a lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just didn't kind of get the memo, but yeah, nobody checked me out, and it just got worse. And then one day I woke up when I was 18, and I was in so much pain, like, to move my legs, like I couldn't move them. But it was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like, it was so much pain you didn't want to move. You know what I mean? And so, like, I was able to, like, scrape myself out of bed and, like, across the floor and call a cab because my mom wouldn't come get me. And she was like, you lived like an hour away, and I was in this apartment. And, go in to get an MRI, and I found out that my disc was fissured, so it ripped.
Oh, man.
So what happens is, like, if you're dehydrated a lot and you lift wrong a lot, it'll break down that disc.
Sure.
And that's exactly what happened, is that I was picking up all those little rocks and stuff. And, like, even if you're lifting right, there's just so much opportunity for wrong at that age when your back's growing. And then in the hot Missouri sun, where every doctor I've talked to about it agrees that that's probably exactly what happened to my back. That it wasn't genetic, that there's no genetic markers. So I don't have Sherman's disease. I don't have any kind of genetic. So they do think it's the back-breaking work, the labor that we had to do there.
Well, you know, whenever you're out working in the hot sun and you're sweating, you have to have water, because water helps lubricate the joints as well, even in between the spine. So if they're keeping you from water or just giving you a little bit, yeah, you should have sent Agape the bill. That's what you should have done.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I didn't, at that time, I really didn't understand what I was able to do legally. I should have at that point in time. However, back then, nobody would have believed me. You know what I mean? Ironically, like, back then I tried to tell people about what happened to me, and they looked at me like, well, suck it up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like what? You're a man. You're a young man. Get over it. You know what I mean? And so, and they still do that. A lot of people still do that. There's still this, whatever, for a better term, toxic masculinity out in the world that is, well, you're a man. You should be able to take that. And but you can't. Obviously, there's physical limits, like, you know what I mean, to what a person can take. And obviously, my back went above and beyond that. I've had 2 back surgeries. I think people don't understand how complicated that is. I'm 35 years old, the next thing that they'll do is a fusion. And so I'm already having pain again. And so I have to have to make a decision. Do I want metal rods in my back and things? But now I'm past the statute of limitations, so I can't sue.
Oh, okay.
In Missouri, it's like 5 years. So that's definitely something we need to change. Most people don't even know that they're abused in that amount of time. And then by the time, it's kind of like by the time the fog clears and you know that you've like been injured and that you have like a lifelong problem, boom, it's these people are just able to get away with it then because it's past the statute of limitations. So that definitely has to change. Most states are 10, 15 years. I don't think there should be a statute on child.
Well, there's no statute of limitations on murder. There shouldn't be statute of limitations on abuse.
No, I don't think there should be on child abuse. Yeah, it's something so like heinous that you really can't like put a there's a get out of jail free card there. I don't agree with that. So and Agape's been abusing kids for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of time frames of people getting out of that 5-year span where they can get away with stuff. And, and a good example of that is Brian coming back. Brian wasn't around when I was there much. Well, he was around a little bit, and then like something happened with a kid. I'm not sure what happened, if he punched a kid. I think he punched a kid. And then he was gone. And then nobody knew what happened really. Like the rumor was that him and that him and his dad were in a fight, and then he came back, and then so now the rumor is that he tried to stay away because the statute of limitations, he didn't want to get in trouble after hitting that kid, which I could totally see happening.
That sounds more plausible right there, the second one.
Right. But anyway,
yeah.
But I don't know if you had any questions. Like, that's a lot of what I witnessed. Like, I didn't make a lot of friends there because we weren't really. It was very discouraged. If you made friends, like that could get you in trouble. So you really wanted to like. I had the guys that I would go play Risk with, or like I worked in the kitchen with, but we talked without staff to kind of like. It was funny because before I went in, I was doing some puppet work in the church. And so I was learning about ventriloquism. And so I actually used that ability to be able to just kind of talk to your teeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I would do that. And we would be able to kind of like communicate in ways like that, or, looking down but it wasn't foolproof, and really honestly, anytime you talked with staff members there, you had to be so PG and everything that you couldn't be yourself. And so it was really weird. I think that messes you up later in life when you're trying to make relationships and trying to have friendships and relationships and things. I think it really messes with you. It creates a lot of social anxiety.
Were you ever in Browntown?
Browntown is not something I'm familiar with.
It's where the worst of the worst go. They got the orange shirts and they're fed peanut butter and.
No. They did have something when I was there. They just put you back in boot camp.
Oh.
And so they would if you got off buddy status, so if you're in buddy status, you could go back to boot camp at any point in time if they didn't like how you're doing. But even off, once you were a burgundy shirt, if Vanderkoy got pissed at you, he'd stick you with a buddy and put you back in an orange shirt and make you do everything all over. And then they had the paddle room, and the paddle room was Burton usually or Vanderkoy. And so you hear the screams from the paddle room. And then Vanderpit was another thing. So Vanderkoy had a pond, but it had all these sharp rocks, and it went like this. And it was sewage and crap. It was like horrible stench out of this pond. And I'm not sure what the deal was with it. I think he told me it was supposed to be septic or something. And he had people doing push-ups like this, so they're facing it. And if you failed, then you fall into it. And so, yeah, I mean, there were some pretty fucked up things, but it was never like, I never heard of Browntown.
Did you ever move up the ranks?
No, I was a door guy. That was really the farthest up the ranks I went. I tried for section leader. Honestly, at one point, I was being a little bit of a goody-goody towards the end of my stay there, just trying to give myself a little bit of authority or a little bit of like breathing room.
Sure.
But no, I didn't really. I wasn't like one of their favorite people.
Yeah, a lot of kids will pretend that they've been saved and they're following Jesus in order to, like you said, have a little breathing room, not have the supervisors on their backs all the time. They can get a little more privilege, you know.
Well, I preached in things too, and you know, I wouldn't say it was all an act or anything. Like, I legitimately was Christian. You know what I mean? I grew up Christian. You know what I mean? I legitimately felt Christian at that time. I think that I have come away feeling very different. And I would say spiritually, I don't identify as a Christian anymore. I would say that I believe that there probably is a God, or some kind of entity that's stronger than us and who's us. I'm kind of agnostic in that sense, but it's definitely inflicted a deep spiritual wound. As far as like, when anybody talks about spiritual things, it's like it's a complete turnoff because of what I went through at Agape. So I do think that Christians and people that are actually Christians need to think about that and how Agape makes them look. You know what I mean? Like, do you want to be associated with that? Like, and I think that, like James Clyden's and stuff, and some of the work that he's done, and some of the stuff has been helpful in pointing out that not all Christians are okay with that kind of behavior, and that's not condoned by their faith by any means. And I think that's great. I think that I will say, having worked, I do Spare the Rod, which is my own thing, a nonprofit I do, and I've looked into quite a few of these schools, and there are state-run ones that are pretty bad, but a lot of the places that I have the worst time trying to rein in are the religious ones.
The religious ones.
A lot of those are Baptist.
Well, you know, the problem is people now, when they see this kind of stuff, like what's happening in Agape, and they tend to put all the religious people into one area and say, okay, they're all bad. If these people are bad, they're all bad. No, they're not all bad.
No,
I've met some Christians that are wonderful people.
Yeah, me too.
But I've also met some Christians who are complete assholes. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And it's
you can't put them all in one bubble. You know, you have to separate them. So
you can't. And I think, but I think that there is. I mean, I do get onto people and they say, "Well, those people aren't real Christians." I get really irritated with that excuse, because I'm like, okay, that's just a really easy way to not accept responsibility when your fringe of your group goes off and does things.
Right.
But
that's the way Roloff was.
Yeah.
You know, Lester Roloff, he was, because I went to the school there in 80, 82. And this guy believed, if you don't believe how he believes, if you weren't a fundamentalist Baptist, then you were going to hell. That's how it is.
I'm doing some research on Roloff, because when I arrived at Agape, it was I believe the Roloff dorm there. No, it was the Bucky Tech dorm. But I was in the Roloff dorm for a little while, and his picture is on the wall.
Oh yeah.
like they practically worship that guy. And so Lester Roloff and Jack Hyde, and, or whatever, that all of those people, those evangelists. But Roloff was interesting, as I'm going through and I'm studying and stuff. Like, I'm not exactly sure what all went on, but Roloff was almost like Epsteinish in some of the tales that I've heard about him. So we'll see what comes out in the coming months. I can't really say some stuff.
Yeah.
But there's some investigations into the Roloff enterprises that should turn up some things.
Well, there's whenever if there's a website, rolloff.org, where you get 24 hours of this guy, if you can stand listening to it. But one of the things that I thought that he was actually correct on, and it's just one, and nothing to do with religion. It was all about health. Plenty of water, you know what I mean? Eat right, exercise. That was his thing. And of course, when you say drink plenty of water, then you got guys from Agape who are refusing to give these kids water. They're not really following the Roloff.
Taunting us, like, oh, you need a water break, and and then would take it away from us, or move it a half hour or 15 minutes or an hour. When you're in that hot Missouri sun, and it's that humidity, I guess that's all you can think about. It's what I mean?
Yeah.
And playing games with kids that were new. It's if you were new to Missouri, you might think, oh, spray me with the hose, I'll cool off. But obviously, if you know about Missouri, that's a bad idea. You're going to raise your personal humidity. But if you're from from the West Coast or something, you might not understand this. And so they would mess with kids that were new, and oh, you want to? Okay, I'll spray you, and then laugh at them like dummy. You know what I mean? And it's okay, well, that's But really, what you're doing to these kids is having a psychological impact, and it's having a physical impact on their bodies over time. So, and then I was slammed around a few times. I didn't really get into a lot of trouble, so I wasn't slammed as much as some kids. But I definitely, my mouth got me in trouble a few times. My first day there, I got slammed by Vanderquay because I mouthed off to Mr. Clemenson, and they were going through my stuff. It's just immediate, welcome to Agape. Plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's
that
how
guy's
it is.
running his own school now in Kentucky.
Who is?
Vanderquay.
Vanderquay?
Last I checked, yeah. Out in Dundee. Yeah. Yeah. So
That's is there any way of stopping these people? I mean, it seems like you shut one down, 3 come back up.
it's like a virus.
Yes.
It's a pandemic. It really is, of child abuse. It really is sad. It's like playing whack-a-mole on it. And it's hard. It's really hard. I can't. So let's see. Circle of Hope started because of Boyd, right?
Yep.
Boyd was at Agape when I was there. I avoided that guy. That guy seemed like he would snap and break anybody's neck that bothered. He just had that eye, in him, and he would talk about killing people, because he was a Marine, and so he would just the discussions he would have with you are just mental. You should not having those discussions with 14, 15, 16-year-old boys,
Right.
But yeah, so that, and then they had a very militant. I will say this: they really wanted you to get into the military. And I think I understand it now. And it's because they put a regiment into your brain, a certain way of doing things. And they feel like if they can keep some kind of regimen after you leave for a certain amount of time, then the stuff that they taught you or will stay cemented in your brain longer. And at a certain age, we stop kind of challenging our own worldview. We start just kind of our neuroplasticity in our brain starts to, like, if you want to get into like a real technical discussion, it starts to decline, and so we start to like stop questioning the world around us, and we start to think we have it all figured out, right? So if they can get you past that point, like your early 20s, still believing what they pumped into your brain, doing the same kind of regimen every day, then they won. And so I mean, and I see it in these people, that these survivors that come out of the military, they're like 10 times more messed up, like, because it just like trauma compounded onto trauma. And then like oftentimes with the military is like, you got to stay tough, and then you compound that with the toxic masculinity, like men have to be tough, right? And then like on top of what we went through at Agape, like there's just these layers that you have to break through to get through to these people that have been in the military afterwards, and it's much harder.
Yeah, they break you down physically and mentally. I mean, the mind can only take so much before it starts to break down. Yeah, and of course, it's the military or Bob Jones University. They'll give you an incentive, pretty much a bribe, and say, "Hey, if you go here, we'll pay your fees for the college," and just to keep you in the ministry. And hopefully, you might come back to Agape as a supervisor or some sort of employee.
Yeah, or they try to get you married in to like one of the stepdaughters or something. There was that weirdness, of like, oh, this person might like you, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't want to get too specific about that, but that was floated. Oh, you're better than these other people, and you should date my daughter. That was,
my daughter
was talking me about, and I'm like, okay, Brian, like,
Yeah, my sexually repressed daughter. You should date her. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's exactly. And then you're sexually repressed, and so it's just this really awkward thing. You know what I mean? It's cultish. It's definitely like trying to cultivate, and then also I didn't realize it's grooming. It's like grooming 101. It's like, oh, those people, you're so much better than them. And then they get you away from your support network, which wasn't much of one anyway there. And then once you're isolated and they've got you all to themselves,
the walls slowly start to crumble, and you begin to think, well, maybe they are right.
Then I don't know if Agape, if you understand, you actually do understand. They use human trafficking type stuff.
Oh yeah.
Once you get a certain level, like they don't pay their staff very much money, so they're reliant on them for certain things like room and board. They was James Clyden's wife was talking about that, about how, and then she went to work off campus, but they wouldn't let her, so because they don't want them making too much, so they want them to be reliant on them and the church.
Well, I think one of the reasons why they did that is because in Roloff's case at the farm there in Corpus, they didn't have, they were as far as financially, they weren't doing very well. This was late 70s, middle 70s, late 70s, and they were encouraging their workers to get jobs in town to kind of supplement the income.
Gotcha.
Little did they know that basically, they were going, as they say, into the world and discovering all these things that they were repressed from. Yeah. So now you have affairs going on, you have drug use going on, all this stuff going on. So basically, and I think some of them learned from that and said, okay, well, either you're going to work for us, you're not going to work for anybody else. So that way we can keep you in our circle and watch you.
Basically. That kind of reminds me of like the Amish and how the Amish are like, they give the opportunity for people in their community to go experience the city.
Oh yeah, Rumspringa.
Like,
Rumspringa.
yeah, Rumspringa.
Yeah.
And then if they come back, then great. But if they don't, then whatever. At least they give them the opportunity. You know what I mean?
Right. But the problem with that, a lot of those Amish kids have no idea about the outside world. So they start getting into drugs and they start getting into
they die
all these things. Yeah.
from the OD because, you know, and things like that, tragically, because people that don't know, when they're thrust into a world like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tragic. I obviously I do DJ and have seen a lot of drug use and things, and a lot of the drug use, the ODs that I've seen and stuff are from people that just never did that drug before, just weren't with people that were really looking out for their best interest, and like, you know, maybe they were supplying the drug for their friends, and so their friends were getting them to buy more and more of it, you know what I mean? So they'd share more and more of it, and then the person ODs. And so, but a lot of times what happens is the person struggling with mental health issues is repressed, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so,
especially that prescription, what's it called? Adderall.
Adderall, yeah.
I mean, you might as well be giving the kid meth.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
it's
essentially meth. Yeah.
Essentially the same thing. Yeah.
It's essentially prescribed meth. Yeah. Very dangerous, especially when you're mixing that with street drugs,
Or alcohol.
You know, I say alcohol to me is like one of the worst drugs. I've been sober for 2.5 years. I mean, to each their own, you know what I mean? But like, I was an alcoholic, and I didn't know until later that, you know, I'm adopted. My dad murdered my mom and my grandpa when I was 6 months old. So there was a lot of unknowns there until later. And now I know him. I actually talked to him from prison. I've forgiven him, but that's a whole thing. So when Christians talk about forgiveness, like I really, sometimes I kind of laugh, because like a lot of times their level of forgiveness is nowhere near the kind of forgiveness I have for people. And I don't need their God for that.
Yeah,
So
it's especially with something like that, it's really tough to forgive. I mean, you know,
it's really hard to forgive. But and the funny thing is that, so my adopted parents, Bill and Chris. So Chris is my birth mom's sister, and they're Christian. Obviously, they don't forgive him. They don't talk to him. Obviously, they don't want me talking to him. They actually disowned me when I first started talking to him. And of course, that didn't last very long. They wanted to talk to me. Now I don't talk to them on my own volition, because they lied to me. They were working with Agape after I left. And they told me they were going to stop after years of me giving them stuff and them not listening. And finally, I thought I broke through. And we were having kind of like a better relationship. But it was all built on lies. The whole time they were transporting kids to these places. So I said, nope, that's it. I'm going to shut you down. And so
they don't condemn murder, but they condemn trafficking and assault, and maybe sexual assault too, of what I've heard going on in there. So,
well, at Agape, there was some sexual assault from staff members, but also from students on students. Because that's the other thing I think that a lot of people don't think about, is it's not just abuse from the staff. It's this environment that perpetually gets you to rat out your friends. And
let's say alleged, just for the sake of argument, that way, because, you know, just to be safe, alleged abuse going on. But yeah, I know what you're saying. They get these kids, they brainwash them to come on their side, and, you know, kid allegedly assaults another kid and says, "Oh, hey, look at the power I got now." So they start getting drunk with power, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I don't know that Agape has them assault other kids that in the city, but Agape does tell the kids, like, it does create an atmosphere where it incentivizes you to rat out people for things, or to, so it's like a pressure cooker in there where you never know who you can trust, who you can't trust, right?
Yeah.
And it creates this really horrible, toxic environment. I was there for almost 4 years, and so it's going to have a lasting effect. I saw some pretty messed up stuff. I've got most of my story written out on my website, and I'm writing a book. And then in the book, I'm going to talk about my activism too, and what I've seen from other places like Agape, because they're all connected. Right now, Gaither is the big question. What's going on with that guy? I don't know if he's going to press charges. It looks like he's going to do about a third of the charges that the AG suggested. So it just baffles me. Like, first of all, I've been speaking out since 2003. And when I started speaking out in 2003 in Yahoo groups, my peers from Agape made fun of me. And some of them still do. And nobody wanted to do anything about Agape back then that I could see, or we didn't know how to.
Yeah, maybe some of them didn't know how to go about it, or they figured no one would believe them.
Right, exactly. And I felt like that too. I just felt like nobody was believing me. I was, and so I would write about it online, and I'd get really frustrated. I'd blog. It wasn't until the last few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, with the breaking code silence things, with some of the other things going on, where I felt like awareness has been getting kicked up, and people have been paying attention, and that we were able to get some headway. But even then, this law that we passed, it still has a carve out for religious exemptions, but also it doesn't go far enough. Like, we need to, in Oregon, we banned prone position and different restraints, right?
Right.
We need to do that in Missouri. It's going to be hard in Missouri because it was hard to even get what we got passed. You know what I mean?
It did take a while.
But we got to do something more, because the other thing is we got to combat child abuse on an institutional level. So we have a complete mess in the government there in Missouri. So the DSS that controls Children's Services Department there is really neglectful, just terrible. You try to talk to them about what's going on, and they give you all kinds of excuses why they can't do anything, and they're just hamstrung everywhere you go. You know what I mean? So that department, Jennifer Tidball, that actually runs the DSS, or the Social Services Department, was sued out of a job back in 2017 for allowing foster kids to be overdrugged. Well, if you know anything about Agape, and like some of these other programs, they pull kids off their medications.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a legal liability there, but some lawyers have told me that there probably is. And if I had enough money, I would probably pursue a lawsuit there for negligence and try and sue her back out of a job again, and be like, look, you can't, like, underdrugging and overdrugging. You know what I mean? Both bad.
According to Agape, all you need is Jesus. That's all you need.
I know. That's all you need, right? You don't need no medications.
All right. I've been a heroin addict for 20 years. That's all right. You just need Jesus. We'll take you off cold turkey. Let you get the night sweats and all that stuff.
First night I was there. First day I was there, it was football camp, right? Everybody's gone, so for a few of us. And one of the newer kids that came in around the same time I did was coming off heroin, cold turkey. And he was sweating and shaking. It's like, and I'd never seen this before. Okay. I was 14 years old. I My dad's a parole and probation officer, or was for 30 years. Like, I went to a Christian school in a small town. Drugs? What are those? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know. Like, and so I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? Is he gonna die? And they're like, oh, it's just heroin. I'm like, what's that? And they're like, you don't know? I literally learned about drugs at Agape.
You can die from withdrawal.
Like, yeah, you totally can. You could totally, that kid could have died the way, like, you know what I mean? And, but they don't care, I guess, or they don't know, or whatever. But I learned all I knew about, like, would come to know about drugs, like if I was in prison or something, from other kids telling me about their drug experiences. So,
wow.
Just something to think about. Like, they think that, like, Agape is such a great environment for kids, but it's really like just like prison or something. Like, kids are just teaching each other different things and that maybe you don't want, kids to know.
Well, in actual cases, it is a prison. I mean, what you were saying before, how there's a lot of snitching going on, there's a lot of assault going on. It is prison. That's the way prison is as well.
It is prison. And then staff are sleeping with the students. There was some of that going on.
Yeah.
And then some of the marrying into and then all of that weirdness. So it's a cesspool. I mean, right now you've got the sheriff's department in Cedar County have people that were working there at Agape. We busted them, put that the Kansas City Star. But then that's why the Highway Patrol had to do the investigation, and then it had to go to the AG, and then the AG had to go. But the AG has to go back to this Gaither guy, who I'm sorry, but I think he's corrupt, or something's going on there, because the AG, to the AG's credit, I don't like the AG very much, but he came down pretty hard on Circle of Hope. And so I guess 1 in 60 charges against Agape, but Ty's only possibly bringing 20. And then I guess the felony level was 3 times higher under the AG than what Ty wants to charge. And I don't know how we know what he wants to charge. I guess maybe he's signaling this to see how much he can get away with. But there's some funny business here. Like, who's paying who? What's going on? Why are you taking these very serious child abuse charges and then taking them down a notch to where they're basically the lowest level of felony you can do? It's pretty obvious.
Agape's got the money.
Yep. It's got to be follow the money. And so I've already contacted the FBI in Kansas City and Springfield, but I don't know that they'll do anything. Honestly, they seem so cold when I call them. I've contacted them twice, each office twice.
Whenever they start hearing about religious organizations, that becomes a very, very touchy. I don't know if I want to get my hands in there kind of subject. You know what I mean? Because they always throw out the church and state stuff, and so
especially in Missouri, because there was that famous case. I can't remember. Oh gosh, the case that happened with in Missouri, where it was the state tried to go after a boarding school. I can't remember the name of the boarding school, and it lost. And so now in Missouri, everybody's woo, they're scared. They're literally scared of Agape, I think.
Sure.
Circle of Hope, I don't think they were as scared of because they're smaller. You know what I mean? Wings of Faith is on the Agape property, so if Agape falls, I would imagine we can get Wings of Faith off of there pretty quick. But Agape has enough money. I think you're right.
They have a lot of money. They get donations. They get whatever it is per year per child.
Oh, they have paid opposition. It came in late to our bill, but they came in and tried to stop the Senate bill that we passed.
Hmm.
We had a guy that I'm assuming they paid this guy but he came in and wanted to argue about what adequate food and water meant. And we were like, "Are you serious?" He was like, "Because like we put it in there that they can't punish people with like food."
Sure.
Because Agape will do that sometimes. Sometimes Agape, well, when I was there, they put people on solid for a week or things like that. Well, that's a teenage boy. They're growing. They need those, you know what I mean? Those nutrients. And so it's pretty cruel to do that.
And you can't deny them bathroom breaks either, because you can hurt them as well like that.
And they would have times where they would do that to us, where they would make us wait for the bathroom for what seemed like a ridiculous amount of time. Eventually, they did kind of get a bathroom situation set up where people could kind of go in and out a little bit easier at will. But for a while, it was like you have like bathroom times basically, and then the dorms, of course, were just really shitty when I was there too. But
well, Bucky Tucker and Roloff, what do you expect, right?
Well,
so.
Those were the nice dorms.
Oh, those are the nice dorms, huh?
Those were the newer dorms when I was there. The other dorms that I stayed in later, like when I first got there, I stayed in the kind of nicer, newer dorms. And then when people got back from football camp, I got pushed back into the dorms that were right next to the school there. And those ones probably shouldn't have even been operating. They were like the metal bunk beds, like the 3 feet apart. There's, the bathrooms were 3 or so sinks, 3 minutes in the shower, 2, or something like that. Like 4 minutes to take a dump or 2 minutes to take a piss. If you took too long, you figure you're whacking off or something. Take time off of your shower next time or something.
It's ridiculous. So, all right, Brett, we have probably about 5 minutes left.
I know,
but well, before we end it,
for all you do,
just let us know, let the audience know how you're doing now. I mean, I know you have the issues with your health and your spine and stuff, but how are you doing mentally, physically?
I'm blessed.
Everything. Okay.
I'm blessed because I just recently won my disability case. So I have Social Security disability. I have I got the official diagnosis a couple of years back of having CPTSD, or PTSD is the official diagnosis, but there is no CPTSD in the DSM-5. And then I have clinical depression, but I managed with meds. I have. It took me a long time to find a good med combination. For people that are struggling with that, I suggest GeneSight. It's a test that uses your genes to find the right medication, and that really helps me. And I've been getting great help with a psychiatrist and a counselor, and I'm helping other people now. I've got a healing group. I've got my Spare the Rod thing that I'm doing and helping other people now, and that seems to help me a lot. Just relating to people, helping them find the right resources for them, and just doing really good. Just bought a car outright, like with some of the back pay, I'm paying off my child support. So hopefully I'll be able to get strong enough mentally to take on trying to see my kid, which my baby's mom hasn't allowed me to see him for like 11 years. So I got to fight that in court now that the disability thing is done. But it's just a constant battle to try and do what I can to make sure nobody has to go through what I went through. And I think there's 2 types of people in the world. There's the people that are like, well, I didn't get that, so you shouldn't either. And then there's the people like, well, I went through that, and so I want to make sure you don't ever have to. And I think that I'm the latter part, or I try to be. And so, that's just where I'm at. Life is beautiful. It could be a lot worse. I'm blessed. There's a lot of people that are not doing as well as I am out there that need our help.
Yeah.
And so, and hopefully we'll get Agape closed down. Thank you for all you do, by the way. I've got a lot of your videos up on my website, under the Agape portion of my website, because honestly, you've done most of the videos as people have come out and talked about Agape. You've been the one that's done most of the interviews, I think.
Well, thank you. I do what I can. I mean, there's so many other things going on. I'm trying to find time. So it's, with this, like I said, with the hiatus I went in, I was basically working 7 days a week.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's really tough to do that and then do this and edit and stuff. So it was just like, let's take a short break. You know what I mean? And then we'll get back into it. So
I'm blessed. I want to get more into podcasting or doing things, because I mean, this is what I do full time. Like, is I do the nonprofit trying to shut down and expose the troubled teen industry stuff. I either do that or music full time. So I'm blessed in that I can give back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do have my limitations. Obviously, that's why I'm not working. So sometimes I do need a lot of time off.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's be in touch.
Yes.
And I'll send more people your way too, But
Okay.
of course, your workload.
Yes. What I'm going to basically start doing for everybody else that's watching is I'm going to get a website together, and it's going to have all the dates, and just pick the dates basically. That way, So
appointment based, yeah. Okay. I like it.
So that'll happen very shortly. So
That'll
Brett,
make it a lot easier. Yeah.
Yes, it will, to schedule people in. So
Take
Brett,
care.
stay on the line for a few seconds, okay? I need to talk to you about something.
Okay.
Okay. For everybody out there listening, thank you for watching. I want to thank Brett Harper for being here, telling his story, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to donate to the channel too as well, helps us out a great deal. So for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself, you take care of each other, and we will see you in the next video. All right?
Blessings.